So let's cross now live to the city of Bagel and Lux. Editor and columnist of the New York Post, fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute, David Christopher Kaufman, a.k.a. DCK. What is happening?
Happy to be here. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy night in New York City last night. Mamdani clinched what many thought was impossible. You know, he is now the front runner to become the next mayor of New York, a 33-year-old a Queens assemblyman who basically has never held public office. And besides being a short-term rapper a couple of years ago, he's never really had a job. But this is not entirely unexpected. You know, over the last few weeks, his poll numbers were really spiking. And equally, we began to see sort of a pulling back of Cuomo. You know, the New York Post, where I work, had a column like last week basically saying, where the hell is this guy? He's not out campaigning. He's not out championing his cause. He's not out, securing voters. And we had Mamdani, who's young and cute and fun and groovy, walking from the top of Manhattan to the bottom of Manhattan to meet with the voters. And those voters turned out in full force for him.
So traditional campaigning still works, the connection with the people. So was it a vote for Mamdani or against Cuomo, or a healthy mix of both, perhaps?
I think it was a vote for Mamdani. This was very much about Mamdani. In many ways, Cuomo early on, folks who were going to vote for him decided early on whether or not they're going to vote for him. I think the issue was whether or not people were going to, sway towards Mamdani and whether or not they were buying what he was selling. And people were buying what he was selling. He was talking about, reducing the police force, food co-ops, of rent freezes, all the kind of buzzwords that people want to hear, especially young voters, and also young voters. Not to be ageist, but they're just a little bit young to understand that these are the types of lifestyle issues that might sound good, but ultimately degrade the quality of life in New York City. If you have rent freezes, landlords and developers aren't going to build new homes, right, and there aren't going to be affordable homes. If you don't have police, crime's going to spike and nobody's going to live in New York. So young people were voting ideologically, but not practically.
Right. So even if it doesn't follow through this time, is it an indication to the changing climate in New York City? Perhaps is it turning from a liberal city to a progressive one?
It's definitely turning to a progressive one, and we have models for this all over the country. Los Angeles, which is basically erupted in riots a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Chicago, which it has an epidemic of gun violence. I think what's really concerning for our community is that Mamdani's win of the Democratic primary is really a refutation of the attempt to end anti-Semitism. And what basically voters were saying is that in many ways, the anti-Semitic surge and epidemic we're experiencing in New York right now, they don't really care, or they care more about progressive issues, progressive lifestyle issues, a nifty, cool, vibe candidate. But really, the opposition to Mamdani focused heavily on the anti-Semitism issue, heavily on the Israel issue. Cuomo basically said, early on, anti-Semitism is the foundation of my campaign. And basically what's happened yesterday is voters, particularly young voters, said, we don't care. It's not that important to us. Maybe we don't even believe it.
It's just a non-topic.
It's not that it's a non-topic. It's just not a particularly important topic, which is very telling and actually quite concerning, considering that New York is, the most Jewish city basically in the world outside of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So if in a city like New York, voters are saying the rise of anti-Semitism doesn't really matter to us, that's a grave and concerning statement, particularly at this time. And particularly we're going to see, elections in Los Angeles. We're going to see elections in Boston. Other big cities are going to have elections very soon, and they're even more progressive than we are in New York.
So what does it mean for the Jewish community in New York?
Yeah, this is a real wake-up call for the Jewish community. I think we don't know yet, because the Jewish community really rallied around Cuomo and really poured, millions and millions and millions of dollars. Cuomo had 3 times the campaign budget of Mamdani, so there was a lot of money poured into Cuomo, and it didn't work. So the question is now, when it comes to the Jewish community, is if it wasn't effective focusing so squarely on the anti-Semitism issue in the primary, and we're trying to get Eric Adams, the current mayor, elected in. Do we focus so heavily on anti-Semitism, or do we coalition build, to use sort of progressive term, do we coalition build with the real estate community or the pro-police community or, other more sort of mainstream centrist communities and causes, and maybe step back from the anti-Semitism issue? I'm not sure. There's going to be a lot of soul searching this weekend.
Well, as per always, lots of food for thought speaking to you, David Christopher Kaufman. Thank you very much for your time. Pleasure speaking to you, as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Good